Hello there. Well, today we're going to have a quick look at seed sowing. Very simple really, but there's one or two little tricks that can just help you get easy and good results. So first of all, choose your container. So we've got a standard seed tray here, and into that we're going to put the compost. Now I'm using Cooling's Professional compost, but you could use a proper seed sowing compost, but this will work very well. So I've got a presser board here, so you could just use a piece of wood or something, or another seed tray on top. So the way we do it, we loose fill it, and then start in the middle, sawing across either way. Now that's nice and flat, and then what we then do is push that down. So there's our seed bed. We'll look at some various different seeds. These ones are begonias. Now when you look at these, they come in such a tiny little packet because they are such a tiny little seed, like that. Pop it open, and if you sneeze you'll lose them. There we go. So to sow a begonia, the best way perhaps to do that, I get used to it so I can just do it freehand, but one good tip is with your seed packet, and this works for most seeds. You can open it up like that, and then holding it just like that, you can tip your seeds into there. And then very carefully, just tapping, keep moving, don't stop once you start. Don't worry about doing it thinly. It's better to do it thinly and then go back over and add more. What you don't want to do is be too thick, because then you'll have all the seeds at one end and very uneven. Done. One thing I should have said was the whole point, one of the points of doing this is if you don't have a level seed bed, when you water, all your seeds will wash to one end. So we want it nice and flat. So that begonias, I'll use the same tray just to save a bit of time today. Tomatoes, you might want to space out in a tray. So what we can do with those is you don't get many in a packet, as I'm sure many of you will know. So very carefully, if you do it on something like that, if you do spill them, you haven't lost them. Open the packet up and you just get them like that. What I have here is just an ordinary green garden cane, and if you dip the end in water, you can then pick up an individual seed and just place it spaced out on the tray. So here for example I'm going 4 across like that, and that means you can have a very evenly spaced, so when it comes to them growing, they're not growing all tightly together. So then you continue doing that way. When you get very good, these are a leek, so these are quite a nice thin seed. You can just literally get them from the packet, and again just keep moving. They're black, which doesn't help because you can't actually see where you've put them, but there we are. So different ways. Now all of these seeds you could just put some compost on the top loosely, and that's fine. I prefer to use vermiculite. Now vermiculite is a volcanic rock, so it can hold air between it, or it does hold air between it, so it is warmer. It's lighter as well, so it can be a bit more forgiving. Generally speaking, the depth of a seed, the height of the seed, is how much compost it really wants on top of it. So if you imagine those tomatoes, they're so small, you don't need much on top. Well, it's very easy to overdo the compost, but the vermiculite being light is a lot more forgiving. So again, starting at one end of the tray, go over and just keep going over until you're happy that it's nice and even. Like that. So you've got a nice flat surface. Now there is another reason for using vermiculite. And that's quite simply, if you're doing, as we do sometimes, lots of different trays, if you forget to label them, at least you know you've put some seeds in there, so you don't end up putting your tomatoes on top of your lettuce or whatever it may be. So very importantly, label. And I always use, as well as obviously the name of the crop, the week number. Here on the nursery we use week number, so this is week 10. So I would just put week 10, and not sure what we call this one because there's so many seeds in there, but they call that tomato, and then it's labelled. Sometimes, again, you can lay that in there, and maybe one at the other end, just to make sure if you're doing multiple trays, it's always labelled. You may now cover it with a bit of polythene, and this is where putting 2 labels in can help, because if you've got a sheet of polythene over the top, when you lift it off to have a look or water, you can lift the labels out. So by putting 2 labels in, one at each end, it's just a double fail-safe. So to water this, we just need a fine rose, and I'll show you that now. Rather than just starting over the tray, start away and then come over it like that. That way you're not washing the seedlings, or the seeds rather, too heavily. If we're looking at growing something like sweet peas, then a pot's ideal. Again, loose fill. You can sow all things in here. You can put tomatoes in if you've only got a handful of seed. Use the other pot, there we go, to create a nice even flat seed bed. And with a sweet pea, we would normally put about, on the ones you buy from us, about 10 or 12 seeds in. So just shake them on like that. And then, because they're sweet peas, they're quite a deep seed, aren't they? So we can pop that over the top like that. And don't forget the label. If you can get hold of some, another good way to sow seeds is in a plug tray. So again, using a Cooling's Professional Compost, loose fill. Use the other one to go on top. Now I've got here some sweet corn. So it's nice and easy. It saves a lot of picking out later. You can just drop them all in, one to each cell, and you can do this with beetroot, lettuce, anything really. It's just so much quicker and easier than all that fiddly pricking out you have to do. I've even done onion sets and garlic in these. In fact, I've got some to do as well, because they just don't suffer quite so much transplant shock, and you can start them off nice and early. Now again, I've used compost there because it's a big seed, I can, but it doesn't actually hurt. Again, just a little bit of vermiculite to show that you've done something in there, and then write another label. True Blue Peter fashion, here's some I prepared earlier. So you can see there, I didn't have a plug tray because we hadn't started production at this point. So there's some cabbages and some lettuce, and they're all quite tight, whereas the ones in the plug tray are growing quite happily and are much easier for transplanting. We'll be doing these out in our veg beds. You see you've got nice root, very easy just to transplant as you need to. And if you don't get round to doing it, you can always eat them out of the tray.